It's been 5 years since the last Doom game, and in 2025 we just got hit by another hardcore, adrenaline-pumping, heavy metal game of the year, Doom: The Dark Ages. Set before the events of Doom 2016, Dark Ages follows the Doomslayer's quest to eradicate the forces of Hell by aiding the Night Sentinels of Argent D'Nor in their battle against the demonic prince Azrek's hellish uprising. What makes Dark Ages somewhat unique is that it has more of a focus on Doom's lore. However, it's not like the most magnificent story ever. We do get some information on the other factions, the Slayer himself, and how the factions view him as a weapon more than he is a human. It's not an award-winning story. It still very much has the same design philosophy as John Romero, who didn't really think video game stories were all that important. So it still is not the main focus, but there's more story here than any other Doom game, which isn't much, but there is some. It's not going to be winning any awards, though. But if you're here to play Doom for its story, then your priorities are all wrong. The franchise is the mother to all FPS games, and without Doom, we wouldn't have the shooters we know and love today. The modern Doom games previously had the emphasis on fast-paced combat. Doom 2016 was known for running and gunning, and Eternal had the more verticality mechanic with the grappling hook and jumping and shooting. Doom: The Dark Ages has a different approach though. Stand and fight. Instead of being an unstoppable force, the Slayer in the Dark Ages is an immovable object. Dark Ages allows him to utilize a shield to block and parry the onslaught of attacks from Hell's forces. More on that later. The Slayer can also be upgraded. You do this by using currency found around the map, either by slaying the demonic horde or finding hidden treasure troves by exploring the secret areas. Once you collect enough of the resources, you can spec into new abilities for the shield or unlock a passive that rewards you for landing successful deflections and parries, and you can upgrade the Slayer's massive arsenal as well. The Dark Ages has my personal favorite collection of weapons for the Slayer, from the classic weapons like the Super Shotgun and the Plasma Rifle to the new additions like the Skull Crusher that munches up skulls for ammunition and shreds apart enemies. My only gripe is that weapons like the Rocket Launcher or the Grenade Launcher felt kinda underpowered by the time that you acquire them in game, and by then you already have a lot of weapons upgraded, and you can also beat the game quite easily without having to worry about upgrading or optimizing your arsenal. You can kinda pick 3 weapons that kind of do the job for you. So it is kind of a step back from Eternal, which had a way better emphasis on utilizing your entire arsenal. There are significant changes to the melee. Gone are the typical glory kills, which helped better set pace in combat in the previous 2 games, where the players were allowed to kind of take a breather from the chaotic fighting and enjoy a more cinematic kill, and in place are the glory strikes. The Slayer will have a new selection of medieval melee weapons, like a ball and chain, that enables him to land a chain of melee attacks where a successful combo will end with an enemy taking massive damage, allowing the Slayer to land one more powerful strike. This has the enemy explode into a fantastic combination of gore and health and ammo pickups. Some might not be a fan of these less cinematic kills, but I felt like these actually set the pace way better because you're already moving kind of slow and you have a single dash with the shield to melee enemies, but if you had to kind of trudge around and then execute an enemy and then set through an execution every time, I feel like that actually might have ruined the pace of fighting, so I think this sets it way better and helps it balance it out. There are 2 new additions to gameplay here, mech fights and dragon riding. These sound really cool on paper, but they end up being really lackluster. The mech fights are so slow and the sections are so short that there's nothing really memorable about them. And the dragon riding is just straight up boring. The dragon flies from point A to point B, not a whole lot of player input other than steering it around, and the only fighting it does is some bland shooting, some occasional cinematic kills and landings. This just feels so unrefined that it just is a blemish on an otherwise really great game, and it's kind of hard to ignore. The enemy variety, though, kept the game really fresh, and I felt like all the enemies really fit well into the stand and fight idea. Most enemies will perform a move called a Hell Surge attack. They kind of start to either glow with green fire or they shoot green fire at the Slayer, and the Slayer can deflect those moves, or parry them, and kind of gain the upper hand in combat by using the passive rune upgrades, like a turret that will lock onto the enemy you're fighting and shoot them until for a certain period of time, or a lightning strike or a mini tremor to damage them back. And you can kind of just make little small builds in this game, which are fun around parrying. Some enemies will also be decked out in heavy armor, and they can only take damage once the armor becomes superheated by like plasma damage or kinetic damage. And then you can like throw the shield or land a melee strike and rip the armor off. And I quite enjoy that addition because I feel like it added some on-the-fly switches to my strategy, so I couldn't really like afford to turn my brain off. I always had to be vigilant on the battlefield, and not every demon is created equal in this game. Some are extremely strong and some are extremely weak, so it's always important to kind of reprioritize when the battlefield shifts in the favor of the demons. And I actually really like that, and I think that's one thing the game really does great, better than the last two games, is that it adds more variety to the enemies and therefore offers more strategy and more engagement to the gameplay. The levels are also designed to be more open, which I really enjoyed, because with how many projectiles get thrown at you, I feel like these bigger arenas make it so it's less of a problem because you can maneuver and assess each situation with ease. I usually kind of complain about how in other games they make arenas too small, and I felt like in Doom Eternal there was a lot of really small arenas that would mess you up. So I really liked that this was in the design philosophy here. And since the game kind of takes place in this more ongoing war, that you were kind of fighting in these huge battlefields, so it made sense in the game as well. And I usually complain about this stuff in new games. I feel like the arenas are always way too small nowadays, and in Doom the Dark Ages, this is just something they get just right. Perfect. Nailed it. And I do have to bring up the soundtrack. Music in Doom is so important, especially since Mick Gordon made the 2016 and Eternal soundtrack, but after he had a falling out with Bethesda, which, that's a whole nother video in itself, he doesn't work on Doom anymore, and it's really noticeable because I couldn't even name a single track on the Dark Ages. It felt kind of like typical heavy metal music. This certainly, we're not getting any All They Fear Is You or the BFG Division in here. And it was just kind of disappointing because I remember kind of being like, at one point being like, is my music on? Is the music on in this level? And then I would change, and my music volume was at like 90%, and I still really couldn't hear it. So that was just disappointing to me because sound in Doom is really important, but the music is such a big aspect of the modern trilogy. And actually, and I dare I say, it's always been a big part of Doom. I mean, the original Doom soundtrack, the original title theme, is very iconic. So for Dark Ages to kind of fumble the ball on one of their most important aspects of the entire franchise was really disappointing. Doom the Dark Ages is still a great game in a great franchise. It has a few new ideas that aren't where they need to be, so therefore it kind of impacts the overall quality. But I'm still happy to give Doom the Dark Ages an 8 out of 10. And if you want to see more video reviews or videos on games like Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered, please hit subscribe, and I'm going to work on reviews when I can, but with the rising cost of games, they're going to come out a little less frequently. Also, more retrospective reviews as well, because I have a ton of games that I haven't gotten to or I'd like to play that are on the older side. So there'll still be game reviews, but not all of them will be about brand new video games. But thank you for stopping by this video, and hit subscribe, drop a like, and I will see you another time. Peace.